The first image is me in my studio, which I took on just after I'd finished my degree with Salford University. Basically, I was awarded a scholarship scheme place for a year, which is supported by Castlefield Gallery and paid for by the Salford University Art Collection. It gives me support and it gives me a place, and it also gave me some funding. This is obviously ideal when you're beginning and you need help from mentorship, and you're in a place normally, if it hadn't been for COVID, where there are lots of other artists working with you, and it's been a little difficult, as you can imagine, but I have tried to make the most of all of the sort of opportunities. These were some of the achievements from when I was in Salford. I did a number of public commissions. DCC data, that's a murmuration made in Perspex, which I can show you later. The Visitor's Choice with Warrington Contemporary Arts Festival. Work housed in Salford Museum and Art Gallery and the University of Salford Art Collection, and have managed to have an exhibition just before lockdown with Soft Spot, and as you can see there, I got a Create Art and Design Award, and then went on to win the scholarship scheme. So I've put the links for a lot of these at the end so you can have a look at those. So my practice, it's quite complex, and it seems to, I obviously just finding out who I am really, and what it is I want to do. Much of it is collaboration, and that's not just with artists, but also with scientists, researchers, musicians, and other people. So this is very much because I'm discovering that my practice is a visceral translation to visual. So I'm interested in a human experience and how we present that visually, and often looking at layers working with mostly initially with Perspex and resin, and I can show you some of that work now, but subsequently with film, virtual reality. Very much of it is it includes light, sound and movement, and it is ultimately quite abstract. I'm looking towards an immersive environment, but I think only if the subject calls for it. I think my main aim in my practice is to find the right medium for the subject. This is the work from the exhibition that was in October, just before the lockdown happened again. It's a difficult one to actually see, but basically these are Perspex domes which have been extruded in an oven that's normally used as a vac former, which is a sort of art that you might be familiar with, sort of like I think from the 80s and 90s. So pushing the Perspex and shaping it, my ideas were initially to use found objects, and you can just about see them in there. Found objects are pieces of masonry that were from a site, a demolished site where there was a house that had been demolished locally. And I have the feeling that within these objects there are still sort of like signs of life, reminiscent of what actually happened there and the destruction of the wrecking ball. So time as well was another element within this piece. So the etching that you can see on the Perspex was to represent time wrapping around an object. And so then you can see that the heat, using the heat and the object, I've managed to push it through and represent that, if you like, as I kind of think it's to do with the fragility of life, but to do with the human element and continuity. The light was used to try and bring all of this together, and it was quite a key feature. Here's the piece in uni. So this is it initially when I photographed it, and this was back in level, I think it was the end of level 5, beginning of level 6. But I think it was it shows how important it is to try to get the best photographs you can, because this was picked up by the curator at Soft Spot, which is similar to you guys, Josh, and they are looking to develop their skills and work and support artists. Yeah, they picked up this image and it fitted in with their subject, luckily. So hence the reason why I was chosen. The video was also part of the installation. So as you can see from this work that I'm showing you, yeah, I missed that out really, but I should have said I'm very much a 3D artist. But I do, again, really believe that I need to be able to choose the medium. Just find my notes here. And explore the subjects and the ideas through the medium themselves. So sometimes I'll make, I don't know, sort of 5 or 6 different versions of one thing just to see what it is I'm interested in, what is the context, and how can we think about the subject visually. Let's see if this little link opens. Let's just. Yeah. Hang on. So this tier was again one of the domes etched with the crystallization of tears, which I collected from friends who offered to cry for me, and we kept the tear on a little slide, and as it crystallized, then the images that came from that got drawn and redrawn, etched into perspex, and then this was just literally me with a mobile phone with the lights, looking at how the tear itself would develop, and its tension, the tension held itself. So I'm just kind of go off that one. Yeah, so this was again another one made in resin, which is just about the right size to hold in your hand. And basically, again, it's something that's quite tactile, and was exploring the subject. Just bear with me. Sorry, a bit nervous. So during the first lockdown, it was really difficult because obviously it was the time for submission, and everything had been made in maquette form, ready to be presented at the exhibition, which obviously didn't happen. So we were driven to put our work online. So the tier became my submission for the final work, and the model here you can see was made to describe the size and the space of the New Adelphi gallery at Salford. What you can see there are tiles, which I'd made actually one, but each one was individually etched with different people's, the crystallization of the different tiers. So depending on why you cry, the actual crystallization is very different. So you have, if you cry because of, I don't know, onions or something that just hurts your eyes, then it's very watery. And if you cry for pain on the other end of the scale, then it's quite flowery and quite interesting. The exhibition I was proposing, and it would only ever be at that proposal stage because of lockdown. But we were able to propose anything as big as we like, because obviously normally I wouldn't get the use of the whole building. But the idea was that this would form a verge, like a verge of tears. And I think early on, feeling obviously like a lot of people did on the verge of tears much of the time because of lockdown, it was the idea was that it would provide a space for people to stand and think a little bit about what they'd lost, which is really difficult while people are losing there's lives and jobs and situations much more serious than perhaps presenting some art. But that was the general idea, that we could take time to think about what we'd lost. So much of my practice is based around process and making things in lots of different mediums. So let's see if we can make this next one work. The next one was a little indulgent. It was basically me feeling very sorry for myself, but again using imagery from university. I'll drag this along a little. That was Making of the Tear, and I was trying to recreate what was going on in the workshops. So these are different images of the work that I was doing, and I kind of put them all together into a video, which you can see the whole thing if you like on YouTube. And that was a laser cutter. And go on to see. There you go. So you can see that the work was made in metal, card. It was printed. And I tend to find what happens is that I'll go between the different floors at the Adelphi building and try out different mediums to see just what might work and just what it is I'm interested in. And even at the end, we were created a sculpture to try to look at what was going on with you know, sort of little fibers and the glassy bits and things like that. So the work just stopped there basically and had to go online. So hence the reason why I went on to make the digital proposal. So yeah, the murmuration. While I was in university, I won a commission to make work for DCC Manchester, who produce the smart boxes. Now, I'll see if this link works. Bear with me. There might be some music on this. Yeah. So I won't leave that running too long, but again, you can have the link and have a look at that. So these little pieces of perspex were to represent the data that DCC record and the expansion and contraction of data and energy use in the UK. So this is just a maquette, it's not the final piece, and it's actually about to be finished. Unfortunately, the building and organisation that were helping me, the fabricators, had to switch to making PPE for much of the time, so it's not yet been made. But my idea with this is to help people to understand how important the smart boxes are, and for the, you know, sort of security of energy in the UK, but also for renewable energy and planning and understanding the use of energy in the UK, which is obviously quite key, because a lot of people felt threatened by putting these boxes in and didn't really understand, you know, why it was important. So I have a background in solar energy, so I was quite passionate about this. And I think if you have an opportunity to make a piece of artwork that creates conversation and can be used by the organisation to, you know, in social media to make a difference, then I think then, you know, job done really. I think that's quite, I'd be quite lucky to do that. Okay, so why VR? Obviously, yes, you mentioned that this technology is something that I had to embrace. I had to embrace something new, as a lot of artists did during lockdown. And I'm literally in a very small room in my house. I do have a studio now, but obviously wasn't allowed in. And what I needed to create an environment where I could work in modelling and also in images, which gave me an opportunity to carry on exploring things three-dimensionally. I never really took to Photoshop or Illustrator, although I did use it and I do have it, and I'm actually finding I'm using it more now. The the reason that VR seemed so exciting for me was literally to create that space. And within this sort of 2x2 room here, I can now work on, you know, in a sort of infinite vista, if you like, of space, and it's working really well. I can import images, I can import videos, I can take color swatches, and I think a lot of people, I've heard it, the work, the tool I use, Tilt Brush, I've heard that described as Photoshop on a stick, but I think there's a lot more to it. And I think that's because I tend to work a lot with my hands, and I like to make things. And I found that that tactile, sort of that visceral expression of my work really came through once I got hold of the wands, and I was able to move, you know, sort of like swooping movements, or even tiny movements, and making things larger and smaller. And you know, once I get in there, the possibilities are endless, and it definitely affects the outcome of the work. If I just click on to the next one. So no, actually, go back to that one. The piece in the middle there, you can see, is a very dense ball, again based on solar energy, layers and layers of what I intended to look like layers of sort of like coal and light, trees. Some of them you can see on the screen there, but basically the viewer is in a position with augmented reality and virtual reality to actually travel through the work in different ways and with different you know, software. So my intention here was that I would create the work, and then I made a film which takes the viewer through it so that they can experience all of these abstract images. But the point was really to say that the you know, solar energy is an obvious way forward, and that, you know, without the sun there wouldn't have been trees, there wouldn't have been the fossil fuels, you know, none of that would actually have existed. So if I just go to the next one, I might be able to. This is a link that Jackie's helped me to set up. Jackie and I got together because her experience in VR and AR is, you know, far superior to mine. So once I was making this work, I felt I need somebody to support me to start to get to the position where I can help the viewer to experience the work. So hopefully this link will work, and then we can have a look. This is a site called Poly, Google Poly, which gives us the ability. So I'm literally now with the mouse able to move forward, hopefully, into
sorry, Babs.
The sun. Can you see?
Would you mind just, if you press escape on PowerPoint and then try and load the link again?
Okay.
Hopefully it will pop back up.
Okay. Let's see. Escape. Just let me get the. I think the link's disappeared. Just let me get into the link, and I'll have to save it. No
worries.
Yeah, I think I can do this. Don't worry. Let's see. Okay. Let's escape, and now.
It's fascinating though.
Can you see it now? Sorry. Are you seeing what I'm
not
seeing?
It hasn't changed from the PowerPoint yet, unfortunately.
Okay. Let me see. It's not going to let me alter the screen share, is it? Okay, well, I'll provide the link at the end, and you know, you can have a play with it, because if you can actually click onto it, basically with your mouse you are able to negotiate it and have a look through, and I think with the journey, which is really important for the viewer, obviously, it gives them the ability to see things that I wouldn't see. So these images you can see on here, are just different positions of, you know, my journey as I went through it. But yeah, I'll provide the link, and
that's on Google Poly.
that's right.
Yeah,
which is
it
about,
looks wonderful.
oh, thank you. So yeah, I'm not really sure how we swap it, because unless I totally X off here.
Yeah, you could close your screen sharing and then try
Yeah.
sharing your screen once again. That might work.
Okay, let's have a little go. No.
There we go. That's back on.
Oh, fabulous.
Fantastic.
Okay, so yeah, we're in Google Poly now. So we're literally coming up through the bottom of the sun and working our way into. Let's see if I can. Oh, let's see if I can not wreck it. It's a bit difficult because obviously you don't normally use a mouse. Normally would use the wands, but if I can, let's negotiate something. Yeah. Whoa, there we go. So we start to see all of these. This is the reason that I like tilt brush. Tilt brush was developed with artists. I think it was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. But the reason I like it is because of the abstraction. Now, each of the actual brushes, you know, there are things like there's thick paint, wet paint, tapered markers, highlighters. There's many brushes as you would get in something like Photoshop anyway, and they're adding to them all the time. But once they start to be layered and together, every single movement I make there, you know, sort of creates a new abstraction. But I tried with this very much to include an element of coal. So there are some parts where we've kind of got black and brown and very organic elements, and some parts which are very bright, like the sun itself, and, you know, obviously, yeah. So my intention is, this is early days, but this is what I'd like to refine and move forward with, really, in augmented reality. So, and as we come back, we'll actually see, yeah, that's the end of it, really. One of the problems
I've never seen Google Poly before, but I think it's so cool. It's like I'm assuming it's like open source, like anybody can use the program.
It is. They're about to, as you can see from that big pink bar, they're about to close it down. But there are a number of others. I think that, let me see, I've not actually written it down, but there's a number of other platforms that are looking to replace it when it finishes in June, I think. Yeah. So if I just kind of go back to my, let's see. Are you seeing back up my PowerPoint now?
I think you'll have to stop sharing and then reshare again.
Okay. Yeah. Are you seeing my PowerPoint now?
It's back on. Thank you, Babs.
All right. Thanks for your help. Fabulous. Okay. So, let's get back to my notes. Yeah. Well, another reason I was interested in using VR was I'd seen the work of an artist called Nancy Baker Cahill, and the geolocation aspect was really exciting because her work is in America, and she has developed an app called the Fourth Wall app, which enables her as an artist to, present her work, her sculptural work, in a 3D form in a specific place. And for me, that's super exciting and has really altered the way I think about open calls and my own work. And, you know, it's expanded really the possibilities for me because if we are, I mean, as an artist, I love and I enjoy research and I enjoy history. I enjoy the idea of representing history and making those links with the present. So to be able to do that and then to be able to work on something in VR and then subsequently have it geolocated in a different place in a specific place for the viewer to see is, you know, kind of like super exciting, and it totally changes your perspective really as an artist. So yeah, just to move on, the anechoic chamber is again somewhere I managed to get into during the early lockdown before it happened again in the beginning of the year. And we're encouraged very much on the scholarship scheme to work with each other. So Rachel Moore is an artist, as you can just see a picture of her on here, who works with synesthesia. And again, it's that sort of like visceral interpretation that I'm really interested in. So we spent some time in the anechoic chamber, and I don't know if anyone, if you're aware, but basically the absorption of sound creates a very different environment, and you can hear things almost, you know, sort of like glassy and crystal-like. Everything is very pure, and there is no reverberation. There is no, you know, other sounds other than the sound that you make. So it's quite overwhelming. But again, it's an environment where we made lots of noises, and we did lots of, you know, we talked and we played music. And then I went on, this was at the very beginning, with tilt brush, to try to reimagine those sounds and how they existed within the framework of the anechoic chamber. And this is ongoing. A lot of my work is collaborative. I find that, in my opinion, I feel that most artists are working collaboratively because it's very difficult to decide where an influence ends and a collaboration begins. So this is something that I'm beginning to study and look at more as I begin my own career. But we were interested in visualizing these sounds. Rachel from a synesthesia point of view, because she works with artists and individuals who have synesthesia and helps them to visualize what the experience is. And I think that's what it's all about. It's about that experience. It's about that point at which a sound becomes an image or an emotion. So to be able to play between you know, those two sort of juxtapositions as an artist, I think is, you know, super exciting. And although I'm only beginning really with tilt brush, you know, the opportunities to use the brushes that respond to sound. So in the video, these all jump around to the different noises that we make. But I haven't actually put anything up yet, because I say this was early days. We were stuck at home, and we decided to use what tools we had. So Rachel had some cyanotype material, and she went on to put her work into cyanotypes. In fact, I think there's another example down here. It might make it a little bit clearer. Here we go. So this is just looking at texture and colour. So this here, this is my interpretation in VR of her imagery. So I've taken part of it, a photograph, and then carried on with some of the brushes to understand the marks that she was making. So it gets complicated, but things go into VR and then out of it again. I'm able to take the idea that the cyanotype chemicals are working in that moment into VR and sort of recreate a landscape. So this is sort of like a 3D landscape. You could, you know, sort of like almost, you know, walk around and experience. And so I would send this work to her digitally, and then she would respond to that. So my collaborations online have been a real godsend, because it's meant that I can continue working, you know, with other artists and send work to them and then back to me, and then I put that back in and I remake something. We share it on a Google file, and we can dip in and out of it whenever we like. It's a real inspiration, really. This is one of the images, again, with these are, this brush is something that responds really well to sound. I've not included any on here because I was a bit worried about music and things like that with YouTube, but yeah, all of these respond either to the noises that we're making or to our voices. And one of the things I liked about this was it gave me an ability to create work which might, if I can get the high quality, be reproduced in prints. So, you know, there's the possibility of making abstract prints. The next one is, again, just playing with brushes. This is actually in as a video, and it was an interpretation I did of an image of Salford Quays. I'm really interested in architecture. I think it's one of the reasons you paired me with Margot Sulek. But yeah, this was just looking at the light and using some of the abstract sort of crossover, almost errors, if you like, that come from using the brushes. So you can see they sort of move and shake around. It's quite a famous, I think it's called Key West building in Salford Quays. But it's quite beautiful, and it has the reflections of the bridge in there. But this is something I just did early on just to think about representing the photograph in a different way. Looking at other artists, this was Norman Lewis, an abstract artist whose work I think I was attracted by the colours actually, and you know, one of the things we can do like Photoshop is we can take colours and reuse a palette that an artist has already used. So this is just paper in the background, and then my interpretation of some work made by the artist. And one of the things I managed to do is separate the paper from the brushes, so that I could experience and look out from, as if I was, you know, the canvas. I'm looking out through the paints. And that is on my Instagram, if anyone's interested to have a look at that. So it's not really a big influence of mine, but it's just something that sort of caught my eye and the opportunity to explore it. Now, Julie Mehretu is a huge influence. I love the way she describes political scenes with layers. And this has had all the way through uni, and you know, even now, I always go back to her work. I'm not really sure why. I think I probably dream of being a painter, but basically she's expressing what's going on in political landscapes, and often pretty violent crowds and, you know, uprisings. She's an Egyptian artist living in America, and what we can see here, this is her early work, but what you can see on the right here is her use of blurring images in photography to actually reproduce a background. And then again, it's kind of like an abstract, visceral representation of what was going on, and often it's quite violent, and that's why you see these, you know, wonderful sort of like swooping marks. So on the left is her early work, and on the right is the later work. So I went on to make quite a few of my own backgrounds, because I enjoy working in offline and online. So in the studio, I've got an airbrush, and I blurred hundreds of photographs, took some of the best ones, and then this that you see here is airbrushed with acrylic ink, and then that's imported into tilt brush. And here, this is just a quick sketch, but similar to some of Julie Mehretu's work, just exploring what the work would be like if it was remade in tilt brush. And the reason I did that is because it sort of loosens me up a little bit. It frees me up to think a little bit differently about the size and the shape, and also there, how does it look if it's in 3 dimensions? Does it work? You know, can we actually perhaps even use these blurred images that are physical as a base or as a canvas in some way for, you know, my work to continue? The next one is this is working with 2 artists who are friends of mine. The one in the center here is Tana Cantrell, who's a painter, and you can see that is her painted work. It's another thing I love about working in VR. I can import an image and work from it as if I'm in a studio. And then here, I've repainted the man's face. We had a suggestion of I Miss My Friends, which was during lockdown. So I took her painting and reinterpreted it. And what I've kind of done is I've thought about the fact that during lockdown, we weren't allowed to go out and eat. We weren't allowed to be with our friends. And sort of like the emotion and the falling, the sadness and the continuity and the blackness. So this was just a quick sketch, but again, it's helping me to learn how to use the brushes a little bit more. And on the right here, this is Nan Collentine, again, another friend of mine. This was her work. And this was a little video we made when we reproduced the work in VR using her palette and just exploring what she was trying to achieve, how she was trying to make it, you know, into an object almost, and could we recreate that? Now this is difficult because basically I'd had to be on, you know, with the headset and the wands, and she was talking to me on Zoom as you are now, and you know, I'd be suggesting things, she was suggesting things, so it was a proper collaboration because we actually both got down to the nitty-gritty of what she was trying to achieve and what we could do together. And there's another little one up there. The one at the top right is basically one of the things you can do, which again, super exciting, is you can repeat things and almost create your own brushes. So we made her painting very small, reduced it to that small size, and then just repeated it as has happened here. So you create your own brush really from, you know, this process. That's Nan's work. This was just exploring texture and colour, some of the beautiful oil brushes that are in Tilt Brush. And here is, this is the work I did early on. But basically I was hoping to, and I've applied to a competition where music is the main driver and the interpreter. So I have turned the music off, but it's Steve Reich's Music for 18 Musicians, which is very repetitive. And I've just explored Kandinsky's colour palette and thought about how the blues are the basses and the oranges are, you know, the violins and all the different colours, and how the light and the movement could represent the sound. So that was just used as a little example for the open call, which I've not heard back from yet. So I think by the end of May, and that's with an organisation called Concord, music organisation. And this next one is again a little video. Now this is my voice. I'm just recording a poet, one of my favourite poets, Christensen.
Bromine exists, and hydrogen. Cicadas exist, chicory, chromium, citrus trees. Cicadas exist.
I can't quite stop it at the right point, but yeah, there we go. So one of the things that, again, super exciting is that these brushes, even in their simplest form, are making new shapes. If you can see there, we've got like a new 3-dimensional image from the flat image. And so once you start to put these together with music, which is something I've done a lot of, but I haven't put any on here because of copyright. You know, you really can go to town. I've made quite a lot of crazy music videos, which I won't make you listen to, but yeah. So that is something I'd like to develop further. And this one is from the tier project that I had in uni. This was a little example I did to try to imagine what it might be like if I had a small exhibition. So these brushes are, I'm trying to use the brushes in a different way, if you like, not in a traditional way. I'm trying to use them to express the movement and the crystallization of tears on the slide as they were in the laboratory when we first looked at them. But one of the things I think that intrigues me most is this abstract sort of almost pixelation, if you like, these errors that occur, especially in some of the crystal brushes. So you can see there the beautiful colours that start to come out. The colours and lights are something that I'm really just beginning to explore. And there's always the possibility of changing a light, but I think to be able to have the lights used as a tool is something it's going to take me a little more time, and it might mean that I need to learn you know, other mediums other than tilt brush, which I certainly will go on to do, I think. And this is one of the last well, this is the last slide, but recently Jackie and I, we have these sort of like suggestions of words and phrases that we work from to help us to create work. And because of my interest in architecture, and also the fact that I live near a very noisy viaduct, I decided to put these two together. So in here is a if I can actually play it, because oh no, I won't play it because there's sound on it. I'll play it at the end. In here are some of the offline development of the, you know, sort of like the backgrounds that were blurred into ink, and then I've imported them back in. I've kept the drawing very simple. It's just literally these squares that are responding, but I was thinking about noise pollution. I was thinking about the effect of the noise on me and my family, because we are actually looking to move, because it's, you know, it's not a pleasant experience. And during lockdown it was really quiet, but since lockdown it's become, yeah, it's become a problem again. So yeah, that's it. So I'll stop sharing. So is there any questions?